Record on this computer. Okay. Hello, everyone. This is Lyra with Great Works Alliance. We are here. It is Sunday, November 1st, 2020. And we are talking today with one of our players, Amber Reed. So here at Great Works Alliance, our mission is to provide and build a community-centric social network, collaboration and referral platform, enabling ease of access to community resources, extended services, and community leaders, activating the user's full potential through fun gamification, interactive engagement, and meritocracy, inspiring and empowering the hero within. So Amber has taken on this mission to discover what exactly the propositions that are being presented for the California election are. 2 days from now, election is due. Everybody who has not voted yet, please keep this date in mind, because any ballots that are mailed in after that may not be counted in this election. And so without further ado, I shall give the floor to Amber Reed, concerned parent and citizen in the state of California. Go for it.
Hello. So yes, my name is Amber, and the reason for this meeting is because there is a lot of props that are on the ballot for this, general election. And I went and looked at both sides of the, concerns and to what is behind each prop, so that what I will be doing today is we'll be going over what they are, what are the pros and the cons, and then maybe even elaborating a little further on that. But basically, my objective is to inform each voter of what they will, in case they do not know, of what exactly these props mean, what is the long-term fiscal effect, what is the long-term effects, because ultimately we want to make sure, however you vote, that is your American right. That is a privilege that we as Americans have. And as a Californian, we just want to make sure that we're aware of what these props are going to do, so that it doesn't fiscally impact us in a negative way, and we can be able to, just go about and living our lives. So, whether you're for it or against it, that is your American right. I'm just here to basically go over what they mean. So, first of all, we have 14 through 25. So we have several props on the ballot this election season. And so with Proposition 14, what that means is what they are proposing here is to authorize a bond continuing stem cell research and an initiative institute. So authorizing 5.5 billion in state obligation bonds to fund grants from the California Institute of Regenerative Medicine and educational nonprofit and private entities for stem cell research, medical research, including training, stem cell therapy, development, delivery research. So if you want to go into further of what this is, we do have like a little video too that we'll be going over that it's like an overview of what it is. But when I was looking at them, so for it, the pro here, let me go back to pro. Pro on 14, what your vote means. A yes vote on this measure means the state could sell at 5.5 billion in general obligation bonds, primarily for stem cell research and the development of new medical treatments in California. The con, the no on it, would mean a no vote measure means the state could not sell the 5.5 billion obligation bonds, primarily for stem cell research and the development of a new medical treatment in California. Lyra, do we have that little video before I expand more on the pros and cons? I would like to show there's like this little ABC, he's a journalist. He just goes over what it means, the pros and cons, which I like. I like to hear both sides of the debate.
So what I could not find was the one on Prop 14. I have the one for 15 through 18. If you want to share that link,
okay,
I'll put that right up.
So meanwhile, it's interesting here. I'm sharing it right now with Lyra. And okay, I'm going to send it to you, Lyra, on your Lyra Jub, the messenger you're speaking on.
I got it.
Okay, so let's take a little look at this pros and cons, and then we can expand on it a little further. Like
Prop 14 asks you to approve bond money for stem cell research, and it's one of many questions this year that'll take us back in time.
The war on terror. George W. Bush would have win Ohio.
In 2004, California voters approved then Prop 71. That gave legal protection to stem cell research, hoping to find new medical treatments or cures for everything from Parkinson's to cancer. Prop 71 also approved spending $3.5 billion both to do stem cell research and to build research facilities. Most of that money went to the UC system, also private universities like Stanford. Today, that $3 billion is almost all spent. The present day Prop 14 would top up the research program with more money. A yes vote approves $5.5 billion for stem cell research and new facilities. Prop 14's money would come from a bond, and that works a lot like taking out a home mortgage. We, the taxpayers, borrow the $5.5 billion and then pay it back in installments plus interest. The analysts figure $260 million a year for the next 30 years. That interest adds up to $2.3 billion for a grand total of $7.8 billion by the time the bond's paid off. Prop 14 does offer one thing that's unique, a chance for the state to make back some of this money. If the research leads to new inventions, the state gets a cut of the profits. So far, that's only raised about $350,000, or 0.01% of the bond money that we've already spent on stem cell work, so don't expect this thing to pay for itself anytime soon. Anything to do with stem cells can quickly turn into a proxy fight over abortion, because as the Mayo Clinic points out, some, though not all, stem cells come from unused human embryos that are grown for in vitro fertilization. You can read the Mayo Clinic for more on that. In your written voter guide, you can find opinions from both sides about how effective this program's been to date. A yes vote approves more bond money for stem cell research. With a no vote, the state's stem cell program would start to wind down.
Okay. So, as we just went over, we just seen that what's on the ballot right now is to either vote yes, which is to give them bond money of ultimately 7.8 billion, or no would mean it's not taking it away, but that they'd have to kind of wind it down. So the yes, perhaps they would have more, be able to find more cures, be able to, as they said, if they find an invention or something that's a profit, then then the state will make that money back. The only concern, as I've said, it's not a position that I'm taking as to say how you should, but as far as information, for the taxes will go up on everybody. It's not just going to go up on a certain amount of people. We're basically voting to, be able to raise that money. They have to take the money from taxpayers to pay off the bond. And right now, because of all the closures, my concern is that nationally, not just in California, a lot of our states are struggling because of lockdowns and closures. The profits that we were used to having, from patroning places or running our businesses, our taxes that we pay was being, taken. We were able to pay for it. But with the hard closures that we've been experiencing in different areas, it has been a hardship. So it's going to actually probably take longer. And some of us can't afford like extreme tax hikes. And it won't just be it'll be on your everyday goods. So my only concern was when they say it's like a 0.01% return. That's like, in my opinion, like me giving $20 investment and receiving back 1%, a penny, and thinking that's a great investment. And I'm just looking at the long term. It says 30 years to possibly be paid back, if it's ever even paid back. This is one that I'm going to have to call for people to make their own decisions in the best way possible. I mean, obviously, we always want modern medicine. We always want to find the best avenue. It's just my concern is the fact that they want such a heavy price tag of 5.5 billion with interest to the tax-paying Californians. So that is what the prop is. I think the video did a very good job at educating us of what we will be voting on. So I leave that to the individual to really look into it further if you want to. You know, like they just said, some people will make it about pro-life, not, and I don't know. It could get messy, but that's not really what the issue is about. The issue that raised my eyebrow here was the $7.8 billion price tag that does affect our everyday life on goods and services with raising taxes and 30-year payback. So then we can move on. So I leave that to you guys to even go further on Prop 14.
And I will be sharing the links for these videos
Good.
in the information at when people go and watch the video, so that they can click on those links to get more information themselves.
Absolutely. Yes, I really trust people to be able to go in there, look at the pros and cons, and make their best decision for their families or what their values line. You know, we're Californians, and I just think the best voter is the informed voter. So, and on so we'll move on to Prop 15. And this one is increased funding sources for public schools, community colleges, and local government services by changing tax assessments on commercial and industrial property initiative constitute amendment. So in a summary, taxes such properties based on current market value instead of purchase price, fiscal impact, increased property taxes on commercial properties, and more than 3 million, providing 6.5 billion to 11.5 billion in new funding to local government and schools. A yes vote means on this measure, property taxes on most commercial properties worth more than 3 million would go up in order to provide new funding to local schools and governments. A no vote is a measure that means property taxes on commercial properties would stay the same. Local governments and schools would not get this new funding, and it's got kind of a hefty price tag on it. So do you have that video link, or do you want me to resend it?
Yes, I do.
Okay. But it's like, again, it's like 30-second videos. It just gives you a little bit of the visual so I can elaborate. And they have like little
Home
commercials.
prices were soaring. Some homeowners, led by this guy, were mad as hell about their ever-increasing property taxes. So voters passed Prop 13, and Californians have been busy voting on property taxes ever since. Over the last 4 decades, Californians have passed more than 20 ballot measures adding new rules for how homes and other properties are taxed. 2020 is no different, but Prop 15, also known as split roll, is the big one. If it passes, it will be the biggest change to California's tax system in a generation. Let me explain.
Hi, I'm Ben Christopher. I'm a political reporter with Cal Matters.
Video. It's a new video.
In a minute.
Properties used to be taxed based on the current home price. If a house's value doubled, so did the taxes. Then voters put a stop to that. Under Prop 13, properties are taxed based on their original purchase price. The longer you stay in your home, the larger the tax break. That also applies to commercial properties, which leads us to Prop 15. Prop 15 splits homes from commercial properties, putting them on different tax rolls, hence split roll. If it passes, nothing changes for homeowners, but lots of commercial landlords would be stripped of their Prop 13 protections and will probably have to start paying a lot more. Not so for small businesses and farms, they're exempt. Supporters say this is a great way to provide more funding to cash-strapped schools and local governments, and that large corporations will pay the most. Opponents say this would be one of the largest tax increases ever, and they warn that landlords will pass the higher costs on to their tenants, which might be small businesses. So, vote yes if you want commercial properties to be taxed based on today's mostly higher market prices. Vote no if you want to keep things the way they are. For more on the 2020 election and everything else about California's politics, go to calmatters.org.
Wow, that was an interesting video. That was a different one, but that was a good one. That was a nice little simplified overview. So my seeing the vote of yes or no, right? So basically, each county has their own set of taxes as well of how much, there's like 5 different local taxes. Like I've even seen on one of my receipts, I didn't even know we had 4 different taxes and they don't even tell you why. So in my opinion here, or when I seen this measure, the only thing I looked into it, and it says 40% will go to education, schools, and that sounds really, it says the fiscal impact here, new funding would be, 3 million, providing 6.5 billion to 11.5 billion in new funding to local governments and schools. Well, the only catch with that is that, and this is for pro or against, is that 40% will go to education and schools possibly, but 60% goes to government, however they want to spend it. So that's something I remind people to just, evaluate where your local position is, where, what is your local rates. I mean, on hindsight, it does sound like a great idea, for advocating our schools do need more funding. So it sounds like a great idea. On the downside, they will be taxing business owners and property taxes, in which unfortunately it does have a domino effect of raising taxes on the people who are renting those buildings. Also, I do have an interesting thought of what's this 60%? Who does it go to? With this kind of a price tag of wanting to raise, because it ultimately will affect all communities. It's not just for $3 million and up, businesses. Ultimately, it ends up impacting its citizens that live within those communities. So my question to voters is 40% to 60%. 60% will be going to your government, local governments, 40% to your schools. So that will be up to your decision on whether that sounds like a good idea or not. Ultimately, though, there will be a trickle effect. Even the people who are for it, vote yes on it, are stating yes, we are going to be taxed more eventually, but they seem they're okay with it. So I leave that in the decision of the voter. And moving on to a very, very controversial prop is Prop 16. And did I send you that Prop 16 video?
Yes, you did. Let me get
Okay.
that up right
I don't know
now.
if that is the different video, or because it was like an ABC guy, ABC 10 journalist that's talking on it.
So this is the one that I was given the link to.
Okay, yeah.
This is the one?
Yes.
Okay.
Depending on who you ask, Prop 16 is either about promoting affirmative action or undoing a legal guarantee of equal rights. This one comes down to what you believe is the best way to address racial inequality. This is another issue we voted on once before. Back in 1996, California voters passed Prop 209. Modeled on language in the Civil Rights Act, it put these words into the state constitution. The state shall not discriminate against or grant preferential treatment to any individual or group on the basis of race, sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin. Back at the time, California had affirmative action programs which gave preference to minorities and women in state hiring, the awarding of state contracts, and most famously, college admissions. Prop 209 made all those programs illegal. Present-day Prop 16 would reverse course and allow affirmative action to return. You can read volumes of philosophical argument and case studies on affirmative action, but here's the simple guide to the debate. Supporters of Prop 16 argued the state needs to award more opportunities to minorities and women, a way to correct for centuries of economic and political privilege falling primarily on white men. Opponents argue the ends don't justify the means, and that if equality is the end goal, the most important thing is to keep equal treatment written into the law. A yes vote on Prop 16 would legalize affirmative action again in California. A no vote keeps the current ban against preference based on race or sex.
So that is a very probably emotionally, that's an emotional, it will provoke some sort of response. So as you've seen, the yes vote would be the only a yes vote would mean that they would have boxes. They would be able to basically, like, as I heard it, I heard from a Berkeley professor, and one of the school administrators was that Berkeley University takes great pride in the fact that their students get in based on merit, not based on a checklist, right? So he was not a Republican or a Democrat or an independent. He was neutral. And he says that he has found that it was a very effective system that students be able to get in colleges and universities based on merit and not disqualify somebody based on the fact that they didn't meet a box or a criteria. And the only thing that is underlined here on their own ballot on this own state of California here is it says the effects on the measure depend on the future choices of state and local government entities and are highly uncertain. So in this situation, we do have a law in effect right now that states that we have equal rights. In the Article 31, I believe, let's see, what article? Let me look this up one more time. I want to make sure that I talk about this article because it's in our law already. That, well, I have a lot of information. Okay. In California law already, the state shall not discriminate against or grant preferential treatment to any individual or group on the basis of race, sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin. Section 31 of Article 1. So I don't really know what's going to happen if it doesn't pass or it does pass. But the thing of it is even a yes vote says it's highly uncertain because it's going to be up to local government entities. So I leave that to the individual to make that decision, which is, what they feel very strongly for, because I believe this is a controversial prop. And I'm not going to tell somebody how they should or shouldn't vote. I'm hoping that you get the facts of what could happen, like go in and look a little bit further into what could happen if it doesn't pass or if it does pass. But currently under California law, we have, and our civil rights as well, but under California law, we already have a law that says that employers and universities and schools or businesses cannot discriminate. And if you can prove they are discriminating against you based on any of this criteria, then you have a federal lawsuit and you have lawsuits on your hands. And there's actually been some lawsuits, one based on the fact that there's been disproportionate situations. So I think that it'll be up to California voters to make that decision on equality, is what it comes down to.
I like that you shared the information regarding meritocracy. That's what we at Great Works Alliance here, you have merit now that you've been doing all of this research and are presenting this. So I just wanted to highlight that. Thank you so much, Amber. And again, for those of you still in this call with us, we will have time at the end to discuss these further. Thank you so much for hanging in there.
My position isn't to tell you what you can and can't do. Obviously, this is a wonderful system we have. And just, getting both sides of the information of what it can and can't do, pros and cons, very important too. And then looking at the long-term impacts is what I like to really look at, especially numbers, with money, when it comes down to it, are we going to be losing more money? Or are we going to be gaining money? So, that's really, I think money helps a lot of people too. So
money runs the world. We all need it to get along, right?
They call it necessary evil, right?
Well, and the thing we're hoping people understand here is we're looking at the general population within the state of California here and how this is affecting the general population, whether you're a single parent, a family unit, just an independent bachelor in a pad. These issues are very impactful, and your choices, what you choose to do, how you choose to vote, we're just asking that you consider these impacts that are going to affect you, and how are they going to affect you.
Absolutely.
We want to talk about this, develop this into a community council where we have community individuals within our communities able to discuss and talk about how this impacts your community.
Yes,
it's important.
That is true because unfortunately, as you can see, this is a little a paragraph, 5-sentence, 6-sentence. A lot of people aren't gonna maybe even read it, or maybe they see an ad on TV and oh, that sounds good. And I did that. I'm guilty of it. I'll see an ad on TV. I'm like, oh, that sounds great. And then when I went into reading all the pages of what it could do or what the long term was, it tells a different story. Not always, but an informed voter is the best kind of voter, is what I say. So
that's right. Thank
So
you.
we're going to move on to Prop 17. And thank you, Lyra, for I really appreciate your kind words. So on Prop 17, restore rights to vote after completion of prison term legislative constitutional amendment. So I don't know. I mean, I guess we could watch the little video on this. I mean, it's like I said, it's like 30 seconds long. But on the other hand, a yes vote would be people on parole who are in the U.S. citizen residents of California and at least 18 years old would be able to vote if they register to vote. And no vote on this means people on state parole would continue to be unable to vote in California. So this is a little misleading because when you're on parole, as soon as you complete your parole, you are able to vote. Okay, so there's not a discrimination there that you're not able to vote for your props or your favorite candidates. The thing of this one would make it to where the person that is on parole would not have to complete their parole sentence. Now, instead of halfway through, they could vote at any time. They just don't. They don't even. Maybe they never get off parole. Maybe they violate it 10 times. Who knows? But the requirement here, it would loosen the restriction. And other counties have this. 16 other counties have that, and I believe Puerto Rico have it to where felons can vote. Which once they've paid their time or whatever, that's great. I think they should. But on this one, it's not making it to where they can't vote. On this legislation, if you vote yes, you're going to allow the people who are on parole, they can vote for whomever, whenever, without having to complete their parole. A no vote means that they do have to finish that requirement. And then as a reward system, they're able to have the privilege of voting. So it's really up to that individual, how you feel about it. It's a personal choice on whether if they get out, they're on parole, it doesn't matter, they should be able to vote. Or do you feel like, okay, they should have to complete the requirement and then they can have the vote, or they can have their registered to vote? It's really up to the individual.
And again, it sounds like it boils down to whether or not that felon is actually showing that they have reformed,
Yeah. Let's see, where did I say in there? I remember I saw something about the men's can't grant criminals the right to vote for completing their sentence. Yeah, they don't have to complete their sentence. Allows criminals convicted of murder, rape, child molestation to vote before paying their debt to society. That's the no. The pro is restores the citizens' right to vote after they finish getting out of prison, aligning California with other states. Recent Parole Commission report found that citizens who complete their prison terms have their voting rights restored are less likely to commit future crimes. I don't know if I subscribe to either one, but I do know that I don't. That's up to the individual. But
Right.
they're basically saying they don't have to finish their parole to be able to have their voting rights reenacted. And even if they're convicted murderers or rapists or child molesters, they can vote before their sentence is served. Probation, not prison. They're already out of prison. So that's an interesting one, right?
Yes, it is an interesting one.
And on Prop 18, so I'm going to move along here to, it amends the California Constitution to permit 17-year-olds to vote in primary and special elections if they will turn 18 by the next general election and be otherwise eligible to vote. Legislative constitutional amendment. So the summary here is a fiscal impact. Increased statewide county costs likely between several hundred or thousands of dollars and 1 million every 2 years.
What?
Increased one-time cost to the state of hundreds of thousands of dollars, just so that your 17-year-old can vote. Okay, so the yes on it is that the measure means eligible 17-year-olds who will be 18 years old by the time of the next general election may vote in primary elections and any special elections preceding the general election. So it's not going to be even all 17-year-olds. It's a certain group of 17-year-olds. Like, let's say their birthday is October 20th and the election is November 2nd. So they will be able to, if this passes, they'll be able to vote in that general election. But it's not all 17-year-olds. But I didn't even read that there was a price tag. This was different than like the 5 pages I read, the fiscal impact. So, and no vote means no one younger than 18 of age. And see, my son kind of qualifies. He turns 18 in February. And he was like, Mom, they sent me a ballot. I should be able to vote. And I'm like, no, the law states once you're 18 and over, you can participate in voting.
Right.
So no one younger, if you vote no on 18, no one younger than 18. If you vote yes, it's going to be costly too. We're going to spend over $1 million to have a kid that's what, 5 days before vote. I don't know. It's individual, again, preference. For me, the price tag it stands out to me, but that's just me. So I leave that to you guys to make that decision as well, and I trust you will make a good one. On Prop 19, this was an important one in my opinion. Changes certain property tax rules, legislative constitutional amendments. And Prop 19 allows homeowners who are over 55, disabled, or wildfire disaster victims, which we've had a lot of wildfire victims. They lost everything in their homes and they don't have homes to go back to. So it really was a crazy fire season and sad. So on this one, it says it allows the disaster victims to transfer primary residence tax base to replacement residence, changes taxation of family property transfers, establishes fire protection services fund, fiscal impact. Local governments would gain tens of millions of dollars of property tax revenue per year, probably growing over time to a few $100 million per year. Schools could receive similar property tax gains. A yes vote means all homeowners who are over 55 who meet the qualifications would be eligible for property tax savings when they move. Only inherited properties used as primary homes or farms would be eligible for this property tax savings. A no vote means no. Some homeowners who are over 55 who meet other qualifications would continue to be eligible for property tax savings when they move. All inherited properties would continue to be eligible for property tax savings. Wow, that sounds very simple. So a yes vote, right? The difference is we already have a law in effect, okay? But a lot of older people, especially retired, elderly, do not move because they don't want to lose their property tax, relief that they have found by living in their home. And I believe you can only do it one time throughout your lifetime of a transfer of tax. This allows them to do it over 3 times. And then it also allows them to transfer it to their families. Let's say, my grandpa passes and I take his home, I would be covered under the Prop 19, that our families could still continue that tax rate. And it does go up 2% every year. But on the other hand, like they said, it still goes, the money still goes to schools and, whatever our California residents needs. I haven't seen any blowback from anybody on Prop 19. I'm just going to say, put it out there. Both sides, Democrats, Republicans have both said, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Give our senior citizens this tax relief. So now you leave that to you guys to look at the objection. But I'm honestly, I'm going to put a little opinion, caution. I don't see anything negative with it. This to me isn't controversial. So it's safe because both Republicans and Democrats love it. So
Right.
we're good.
All right.
So moving on to Prop 20. Restricts parole for this is the tricky one. Do you have that Prop 20 video? Well, let me see what this one says. Restricts parole for certain offense currently considered to be nonviolent. Authorizes felony sentences for certain offenses currently treated only as misdemeanors. Initiative statute. Limits access to parole programs. Establishes for nonviolent offenders who have completed the full term of their primary offense by eliminating eligibility for certain offenses. Fiscal impact. Increases in state and local correctional court and law enforcement costs, likely in the tens of millions of dollars annually, depending on implementation. A yes vote means people who commit certain theft-related crimes, such as shoplifting or increased penalties such as longer jail terms. Additional factors would be considered for the state process for releasing certain inmates from prison early. Law enforcement would be required to collect DNA samples from adults convicted of certain misdemeanors. Now, currently, might I remind you of what this misdemeanor is? Currently, human trafficking is not considered a violent crime. Okay. And a lot of the funding has been cut for that, where they are able to be turned loose, the people alleged, you know, and then there are some who were convicted of it, and they're still turned loose to repeat human trafficking. So this one was, there's a lot to Prop 20. I really encourage everyone to really just dive into it a little bit, because a no vote means that penalties for people who commit these crimes. Now, they like to classify petty theft into it, but they're also leaving out people who are pimps, or, you know, are doing human trafficking. So there will be no charge to the state's process releasing certain inmates from prison early. Law enforcement would continue to require to collect DNA samples from adults only if they're arrested for a felony, or required to register as sex offenders or arsonists. So I don't know. I leave that to you. A yes vote means they're going to classify. It would lead to possibly more incarcerations, and I know that doesn't make everybody happy. But these are for repeat offenders. We're not talking someone on their first or second or third crime. This would be probably an increase in incarcerations based on a repeat offender. Might be petty theft, or it might be sex trafficking, and that's a heinous crime in my opinion. So, you know, I leave that to you to make your decision based on your best judgment on whether you want to vote yes to criminalize, you know, the violent crime. Sex trafficking is part of it, but it's not all of it. So please read it all. But yeah, so that's just the gist of Prop 20.
All right. And then there was a site you wanted me to share.
Oh yeah, they have a video on it too, on the Prop 20. That video, that same guy, the ABC 10 reporter. I like his style. He does leave a lot out, but I like his summaries.
So this is the
Yeah,
site.
that's the one that was the information I got about the sex trafficking.
Okay.
Protect victims of violent crimes, because they haven't. Oh my God! And did you see we just had another bill that passed that nobody's happy about that 10-year gap that a 24-year-old can have sex with a 14-year-old?
Yes. Yes.
What is going on? So sorry, I didn't mean to get loud.
That's fine. So you have 3 more.
Yeah, we have a couple more, and then we can
have a discussion about it. Talk about what we're thinking. Awesome.
We have another very controversial Prop 21. Actually, did I send you the video on that? I think we should watch a video real quick. Prop 21.
I did not get the link. Share it to me.
Because this one is controversial, because on hindsight, you know, some of it sounds really, really great. I don't, you know, there's nothing wrong with the rent control. And then we also have the pros and cons here is that it is going to raise costs on renters. And that's no good, you know, because if a new, here, let me share it. Share. There we go. So,
okay.
I sent it to you. Did it go?
Oh. All right.
So it allows local governments to establish rent control, local governments on rent control.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead, play the video, and then I'll just touch down on it.
Sure.
Prop 21 is another stab at expanding rent control from the same campaign that tried to do it 2 years ago in the midterms. This go round they're back with a slightly softened plan, but the lay of the land is different. Since the last time we voted on this, state lawmakers enacted a rent cap, and Governor Newsom signed it into law. Rent can only go up 5% plus inflation each year on most rentals in California for the next decade. Apart from that, California only allows rent control at the local level. Prop 21 would let cities and counties place more rent controls on more properties. Your city council can already limit the rent, but only on units built before February 1st, 1995. It's a hard and fast line in the law. Prop 21 would cross that standard out and replace it with 15 years, allowing rent control on homes that are at least 15 years old, which means every year, more and more houses would qualify. Another big change, Prop 21 would undo the ban on rent control for standalone single-family homes. As a nod to mom and pop owners, Prop 21 would exempt landlords who own 2 or fewer properties, so this part will affect some standalone houses, but not all. State analysts point out the same thing they did last time, that new rent controls would lead some landlords to sell the homes they own, reducing the supply of rental housing. When you move out, that breaks any local rent control you have on your apartment. The landlord's allowed to charge the next people whatever they want. Prop 21 allows local governments to also cap rent increases for new renters at 15% over that new renter's first 3 years. A yes vote on Prop 21 enacts these expanded local rules for rent control. A no keeps the current standards in place.
So, kind of like an overview of expanding on what he just said was that at first it didn't seem too bad. Like, okay, let's put some rent control. We already have one called the Contra Hawkins Rent Control Act, right? And that's into effect till 2030. And I was a loan officer, so I like to stay current on what's going on in the state. The pro for it is a strong correlation with you're going to grow your government in your area. Strong correlation of your government leaders, affordable housing providers, and seniors, veterans, homeless advocates agree that it might prevent homelessness. The other objective here, though, is Prop 21 undermines the strongest statewide rent control law in the nation, costs jobs, reduces home values, stops new housing from being built, and eliminates homeowner protections while providing no protections for renters and seniors or veterans or disabled Californians. That's the no on 21. The yes is it would expand your local governments in your communities, and it would just basically, I think it would, well, I don't think, it will undermine the current rent controls that we have. I know LA, San Francisco, and San Jose also have an expansion on rent controls as well. And then you have a problem with supply and demand. As you can see, to rent down there is really, really high. And another fallout of doing this, if it's passed with Prop 21, is that landlords will sell their properties because they know how to make money. Okay, people in these industries know how to roll over and make money, or know when to cash out to avoid certain taxes, right? The new landlords could come in and tax the tenants, the renters, whatever they want. So there is a double side of this coin here. It's very important that I think 21 is a very, very big one. I think there's a couple props on here that's very big that could definitely impact your standard of life in California if you're a renter. And obviously I don't own multiple properties, but in the future, they said that expanding the bureaucracy here, they can do what they want. They can start writing their own rules, their own rule codes. Even the legislators have said this is a slippery slope legislation. So we already have rent controls in effect till 2030. This one kind of bumped that one out, which is protecting renters, and expanded to 15 years. And so I leave that to you, the Californians, to make your best decision on, basically you're going to be voting what affects your life and your family's life. It's not about what I say. It's not about what they're saying. It's about just knowing what's happening and for long-term effects, because ultimately we don't want to see, we don't want to see bad things happen to Californians either way, So we'll watch this one. I'll be watching this one. And then we'll move on to Prop 22. We are almost done. It says exempts app-based transportation delivery companies from providing employee benefits to certain drivers initiative statute. Again, there's been a lot of support for it because Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, ride shares, they want to be able to keep it as it is. And then even the yes on it would even give them, it's a yes with benefits, and they would be contractors with benefits instead of just employees. There's a lot of pros and cons. A no vote would mean app-based rideshare and delivery companies would have to hire drivers as employees if the courts say that a recent state law makes drivers employees. Drivers would have less choice about when and where and how much they can work, but would get standard benefits and protections as employees. And then the video on it was pretty informative, I think, because they would be losing money overall and that's why a lot of ride shares are saying yes on 22. So I encourage everybody, a yes vote means, or a no vote is really up to that individual. But I didn't see any blowback. This is not a controversial prop. A lot of people are like, yeah, let's do it. Yes on 22 because they want it. They want to be independent contractors and get the benefits, which is what they're working. Right now, there's a lawsuit against the companies, and they're fighting back with this legislative. So you make your own decision here. And we'll have links that can, you can watch 30 seconds and you'll be able to know more if you want. But this one wasn't that controversial, unless you're a driver. Now, if you're an Uber driver, this is very controversial, and you're probably going to vote yes. But that's up to the individual. So, okay, we're almost done. Prop 23 establishes state requirements for kidney dialysis clinics, requires on-site medical professional initiative and statutes. Now, with this one, it's kind of complicated. So, Lyra, I'm just going to share this little video real quick. It just touches down on it again, 30, 40 seconds, and then we can move on. It's an important one. Oops, sorry. That's so loud. Prop 23. Where'd you go? There we go. There you go, Lyra.
Alrighty. Open in a new tab. Ta-da!
I'm also going to 24. Okay, go for it.
We get fancy with our fingers when we want to share information with everybody because, sharing is caring. This is about sharing and caring for everyone here. All right, here we go.
A tiny fraction of Californians depend on dialysis treatments to live. It's about 80,000 of us in a state of 40 million people. And yet, the entire state will vote on rules for dialysis in Prop 23. If that sounds familiar, it should. 2 years ago, California voters rejected new, tougher rules for dialysis clinics by a vote of 60 to 40. That was Prop 8. Same group is back asking again for tougher rules, just a bit less tough than last time. Dialysis is a procedure for people who have failing kidneys. Your kidneys filter and clean your blood. In dialysis, a nurse hooks you up to a machine that cleans your blood outside of your body instead. You spend hours hooked up to that machine, usually a few times a week. As a result, it's big business. 2 for-profit companies, DaVita and Fresenius, own about 3/4 of the clinics in California. The last time, union groups tried to pass a cap on the profit that those clinics can make. This time, it's a more modest proposal to require a doctor be on site during all operating hours of the clinics. Right now, each clinic needs to have a medical director who's a doctor, but they don't have to be there all the time. Changing that could cost each clinic a few $100,000 a year. Prop 23 also requires dialysis centers to report infection data to the state, not just the federal government as they already do. And Prop 23 would ban giving patients different treatment based on how they pay. Despite language in Prop 23 that would require clinics to get permission from the state to shut down, the state's analysts caution that some clinics could decide to go out of business if Prop 23 were to pass, mainly because it would make dialysis more expensive for the companies to do. A yes vote approves the stricter rules on dialysis. A no vote keeps dialysis regulated the way it already is.
Pretty self-explanatory there. Even in the summary, it says prohibits clinics from refusing to treat patients, payment source, fiscal impact, increase state and local government costs likely in the tens of millions of dollars annually. But I look forward to hearing from Jim maybe on this one. Yeah, so the guy, pretty much self-explanatory, there's going to be costlier to have a doctor on there all times. No vote means that chronic dialysis clinics would not be required to have a doctor on site at all times. So, but it's not just that. That's just a little overview. And then you have the pros and cons again. You can go online, do a little more research. If if you want to know more about it, because there's a lot of there's a lot actually of pros and cons on this one. So I leave that up to the voter. Okay, one more, or actually two more. Prop 24 amends Consumer Privacy Laws Initiative statute. And this one is so complicated. This one is the long one. Like, it's such a, it's, how do I put this? It's hard to understand. And because it's a difficult read, we do have this video too. I think out of all the videos, I think this one is a good one too. I sent it to you. Kind of simplifies it, but it's still complicated. So
All
you
right,
want to spend
hold
30,
on,
40 seconds.
that. You did just send that to me, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Increased annual state costs at least 10 million. Penalties. Okay.
2 years ago, state lawmakers passed what were supposed to be new cutting-edge privacy protections into law, but didn't end up doing a whole lot to change how people's data was collected and shared. Some of the same people who pushed for that law argue we need Prop 24 to finish the job, plugging what they see as loopholes exploited by the tech companies. Prop 24, though, is opposed by some big-time privacy advocates, most notably Public Citizen and the ACLU, but another consumer watchdog supports it. The first thing to know about Prop 24 is that it is beefy. The text of the proposed new law stretches 52 pages long, and it isn't an easy read.
Longer than that.
That's part of why this ballot question is dividing old allies, according to Wired Magazine's excellent piece, which explains that Prop 24's convoluted language has led to sharply different opinions about what the initiative would actually do, whether in crucial respects it would expand consumer privacy or restrict it. One leading group on digital privacy, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, even took a neutral position on Prop 24, calling it a mixed bag of partial steps backwards and forwards. The details matter, and we don't have time to cover them all in this video, but I can tell you that Prop 24 would create new rights for online users to limit the sharing of their data and to correct inaccurate personal data. Prop 24 would also set new penalties for privacy violations by tech companies.
Hello.
Create a brand new $10 million state agency to enforce the rules. Supporters say those are all things worth doing right now. Opponents say we should allow more time to work out the kinks with that law the legislature passed 2 years ago. Right now, you're the lawmaker on this issue. A yes vote adopts the 52-page overhaul of state privacy laws and enforcement. A no vote rejects them.
Yeah, so that one's a slippery slope. So pro Prop 24, parents, common sense, media, make privacy laws stronger, strengthen privacy laws, hold corporations accountable. Con is pay for privacy schemes, makes workers wait years to learn what confidential information employers collect on them, and makes it harder to stop tech giants from selling your information. Proposition 24 is written behind closed doors and input from social media corporations. So again, this is a tough one, and this is going to have to be based on the individual. I'm always, for me personally, increased annual state costs of at least 10 million, exceeding low 10 millions. You know, we just look into it before you vote on it. That's all I ask. I mean, we just went over it, but if it piques your curiosity further, please dive into that one in particular. And Prop 25, a referendum on law that replaced money bail with system based on public safety and flight risk. So a yes vote approves and no vote rejects. Law replacing money bail with system based on public safety and flight risk. Fiscal impact, increased cost possibly in the mid-hundreds of millions of dollars annually for new process for release from jail prior to trial. Decreased county jail costs possibly in high tens of millions of dollars annually. So a yes vote means No one would pay bail to be released from jail before trial. Instead, people would rather be released automatically or based on their assessed risk of committing another crime or not appearing in court if released. No one would be in charge. No one would be charged fees as a condition of release. A no vote means some people would continue to be paid bail to be released from jail before trial. Other people could continue to be released without paying bail, in condition to be charged as a condition of release. The summary is a yes vote proves a no vote. Yeah, we already just said that. Again, the pro here is yes on 25 replaces money bail with fairer, safer, and less costly process. Currently in afford to pay bail bond company. Oh yeah, so you know you can go to your somebody. Oh, I hear background noise, and then a con.
Can you please mute your phone? Somehow it got unmuted.
And then, yeah, so Sacramento politicians to take away every Californian's option to post bail and replaces it with a new discriminatory system. Computer generated profiling administered by government bureaucrats, costing taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars a year. So I guess you could tell which one I'm going to vote no on, but there you go. There's the pros and cons of the last prop. Yes, you know, these things are so they're controversial in regards that they make you feel like a bad person if you don't want to vote yes or no, and that could be either side. So it's really, you know, okay. It's just really, you know, it's just one of them things that you have to.
Thank you, Amber. That is wonderful. I'm so glad that you were able to do this investigation. We have published this mission for others in your state, in whatever state that is, to do this investigation. You know, a lot of what we've been seeing in our communities is that people are so confused with what is going on right now, and that keeps them in this frozen state. And that frozen state of inaction is what is enabling these props and legislation to be passed that is harming us, harming our communities, harming our families.
Can I give you an example real quick?
Yes, sure.
We had a primary, and 17% of the county only voted. 17%, and it was huge for communities. They needed to raise the toll bridge amount when even the commuters were like, no, you guys have paid for that bridge 100 times over. So a lot of people were not for it, but the problem is you may not be for it, but if they're not voting or participating, even though they are eligible voters, this is where we get these. Sometimes I know all of us, Michelle, Jim, you, Nathan, all of us have been like, how the heck did this pass, right? Well, then you'll look at the participation of how many people voted on whatever the measure was, and you'll be like, oh. So the reason why these certain things are passing is because people don't either know about it, or they're not participating in the vote, or they're misled. Like there was that gas tax that everybody was like, okay, not everybody, obviously, because it passed, but this was actually a bipartisan issue where my, friends from both sides of the aisle were, I'm talking about the establishments were both against it. Somehow it got passed. And the reason being, it was misleading and tricky language in the Prop 6. And that is why it passed, because it was a bipartisan. No, we don't want to pay any more taxes. Our gas is already taxed. So then we implemented an even further tax. And I mean, if we're going to spend like millions and millions and millions of taxpayer money all the time, I would like to have accountability. Like they say they give you an itemized list of what they've done. I have yet to discover where that's at. They say it goes to your local bureaucracy, it expands your government. I'd like to know where that's at. Where's your itemized list to show me what you're spending the money on? So, it's really important and critical for all voters to know what you're voting on and participate. Participation.
We gotta have public oversight here. I mean, this is something that Michelle is also very passionate about in the judicial system, and there aren't any. I noticed that there are no propositions on judicial accountability here at all proposed. It's based on inmates and their ability to vote and that kind of
The state's
scenario.
kind of ran by judges, by the way, so you might want to be a little reluctant when you're voting on what's going to go and who, it's about balance, checks and balances. And when, we're voting for all this expansions and all this, there's no real accountability as we've seen in the judicial system. When it gets too powerful, it's very hard to stop it once it grows out of control.
Well, so now I believe we should open this discussion up. The reason that we are here today is to enable and inspire people within any community to have these open discussions on what's going on in your community. A lot of us are being denied the ability to go to town hall, city hall, and they're talking about shutting down the government again. It hasn't even been reopened in the social service sector. We have Department of Welfare telling people they have to wait in line to fill out a request for assistance and then hand it to somebody at that door or mail it in and just wait for somebody to call them back.
Wow.
Not even doing in-person interviews. I mean, there's a lack of accountability on both sides if you look at it in that light, because now you have people who may not really need the assistance going and filling out assistance forms for welfare.
You know about the fraud that we just read about, the unemployment frauds was in the people from other states were coming here getting unemployment when Californians were being denied. But somehow, there was a lot of fraud.
Right. And so, this is what I imagine this being the beginning of is or connection with, because I know that there are other people around the country doing similar discussion formats, that we start opening these discussions, because it's not about politics at this point. It's about the people and how the people are being shafted at every turn, and how people are being frozen and unable to act for a number of reasons, whether it's the government offices denying them access to public services, which is like a crime itself, to, just passing laws and legislation that harms everyone except for the select few that want things to go in their direction. Michelle, was there anything you wanted to offer and your perspective?
She might be away right now.
Yeah, or Jim, I know that there's a lot going on, and this is the world we live in today, where we're trying to connect as much as we can with the limited ability to go anywhere. I'm appalled at some of what I have seen here. But I wanted to highlight and say how appreciative I am of those people that are getting out there and checking on the homeless, taking like food and warm clothes. We need more of that happening, but it's up to the community members to be involved.
Yeah, it seems citizens are more caring and willing to help than even government services. Like we lost our rescue mission here, and that was a crime to me because it just they got greedy. There was mismanagement of funds, and Jim's talking, but you guys can't hear him. Jim, can you hear us? Can you unmute?
You got muted again, Jim. I'm sorry that your picture isn't working, but go ahead, Jim.
There you go.
I see no picture here, but I do hear you guys perfectly.
We can hear you.
Okay.
What are your thoughts as far as what Amber has shared with us?
There's a whole lot to take in.
Yes, it is.
And
Um,
I've already voted, so I did
That's
actually
okay. That's good. You did your part.
that's
about a
right.
week ago,
Good. I
and
voted.
I kind of went along the party lines, but they chose I did. So, and I'll give you a hint, I'm very conservative, but you knew that anyway.
Yeah, we did.
You did.
Definitely. Well, that's good though. I mean, at least you cast your ballot and you voted for things that you felt were good for your family. And I think what's happened in America, which is sad, is that we can't talk things over anymore without it being like a war.
Or uh-huh.
And then when I read these again, when I went through, I'm talking about when I went through the more explicit, because I wanted to know about these privacy. What is this government of ours trying to do here? It's really sad because, it shouldn't be a partisan issue when it comes to certain things. It actually, a lot of it, it hurts everybody when certain things go by, when certain things get passed and they don't even know it. They
Uh-huh.
box it up like a sweetheart deal. We used to call it sweetheart deals. So it's just, it's sad that we can't have conversations based on, it's like tribalism. We got to have these teams and there's just no way to think outside the box of, I'm not saying you're like that, Jim. I'm just saying in what I've noticed in social media is just really incited a lot of this discord. So today I know I took up a lot of time, but I'm just hoping that people can, see this or wait a minute, it doesn't sound right, and fact check me. I encourage everybody to always check me. Don't just take my word for it. Don't take the guy on the video's word for it. Always go do your own homework. But I kind of give you a simplified version of the research so that you can make the best decision for your life, your community, your family. That's how
Yes,
we.
and that's what we're encouraging here is for everybody to be able to take a moment to gain clarity and perspective and engage in conversation if there are questions you have. Engage in the discovery. So what I'm sharing here is this is about our meritus badging system because now that Amber has completed this mission and shared her information, she's eligible to receive certain badges of recognition. We have this humanity badge of recognition, which I believe is very much in line with what we're talking about here, getting, the kindness, the sense making, the social intelligence, getting involved into the community. I believe that you should get a badge for that. And then we also have the core character strength virtues of justice because we need to balance and be discerning and have judgment, and then be a citizen, get involved as a citizen and active. And that's what you're doing here. And you're looking at the balancing of the fairness and this discovery of yours. And so these are what we are offering as your rewards for doing such a wonderful job. I'm so happy that you were
Thank
able
you.
to put this together for us. And I know that the polls are open on November 3rd. So that's Tuesday, November 3rd for anyone who's wanting to go cast their ballot. The other thing you can do is mail your ballot in. I believe I heard from you, Amber, that they're talking about closing some of the polling stations. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have to even. I'll send you those links, but they're threatening in certain counties to even close down because of concern of coronavirus. So I'll send you that information. I'm a news junkie, so I get news from all over the nation. But my local news, my state news, and it just came down the feed not that long ago, and they were trying to shut down polling places for COVID concerns, so people might not even be able to vote on election day, which doesn't make sense to me. So
Wouldn't that make it somewhat of a wouldn't they have to, the president have to initiate a mandate that if places are shut down, if polling places are shut down, that those who were unable to go and cast their ballot have that opportunity to them?
either I have to look into it, but they have to allow people to be able to cast their vote. They can't, under any circumstances, prevent someone's ability to make their vote count. So I don't know what kind of alternative they're requesting. Are they trying to like tell these people where they're threatening shutdowns? Are they trying to tell them, okay, then you have to do a mail-in ballot with an extension? I'm not quite sure. So we have to look into that, because that wouldn't be
unconstitutional for them. Yeah, it would be
it
unconstitutional.
is, right.
And you know, we know that our
And then
forefathers
they have
fought
states
really hard for this.
against it.
So I'm sorry?
No, I mean, there's some states that have extended their turn-ins too. Like they've given additional like 9 days to submit ballots, and you know, there's a couple. There's how many is it, Jim? Do you follow that?
So far, yep.
So yeah, did you hear like there's a couple counties or areas that are allowing like 9 to 12-day extensions after the election? So we really will not know who is, unless it's a significant.
On the other hand, my vote's priority counted, so we already know what the majority's doing. Hopefully.
Right?
Right. Well, we'll see.
Yes. And for all of you out there that have already voted, congratulations. You have done your due diligence in your job as a citizen of America and voting. We hope you voted your conscience. Yes, Michelle. Hi.
Hey, Amber. Thanks. Sorry, I had to deal with a little kitchen fire, but I have been listening.
Oh my gosh.
It wasn't a fire. It was just I forgot that I had but I have been listening. But I want to thank you. I haven't voted yet. And a lot of the reason why I haven't voted is because because of all the propositions. They're so convoluted. They're so and you can't take it for face value. There's a lot that goes into each one of them. And thank you for doing all this research. I have been listening, and I haven't actually voted on all of them. I agree with a lot of them. I want to say, you know, what's interesting with the last one you talked about, the really complicated one, and you know, I'm going to look at it, but just for the mere fact that it's complicated, I just want to not vote for it. I just say, if it gets that complicated, there's something wrong with it. There's something shady about it. You know, our laws and the things we vote for need to be straightforward. They need to be clear. And I mean, when things are complicated like that, either they're intentionally complicated or they're poorly thought out. It needs to be something, people need to know, be clear on what they're voting for. And if it's not clear on where they're voting for, if it's not clear where the money's going or where it's coming from, then let's just shut it down. I mean, honestly, you said complicated, and I just stopped listening. You know, you know, that's just how I feel. That's my position on that in general.
Yeah, I mean, it was 50. They said it was only 52 pages. It was not. It was like 55 pages. And yeah, they said that it was written behind closed doors, and it is complicated language, and that's ridiculous. Like, why are you doing that to people? It should be just simplify. So.
Yeah. Right. Absolutely.
Well, I'm glad you're going to be voting, Michelle. I have left a couple open because I wanted to.
And you know, the propositions are where, like, I mean, our vote really counts.
There you go.
There's a lot of propositions that got voted through, at least especially here in San Francisco, where everyone's like, this is so dumb. Why did this happen? And we're like, you know, that's because the voters of San Francisco voted it in. And we'll complain later afterwards about why things are a certain way. It's because people don't sit down and really think of like the implications and the consequences of everything they're voting for. They don't take the time to vote, but it affects their everyday life. So I really hope that everyone gets out and vote. I thank you for doing this research, Amber. A lot, that's more than any of us have done. And I'm sorry, not any of us, but that's more than a lot of us have done. So I will
where they get us,
definitely,
Michelle, right? Isn't that like you just said, like in San Francisco, you're like, what the heck? And then people, it's because they didn't read the props or they didn't know what was going on or they didn't vote. So, you know, for me, I always pay. Well, again, I don't know how much my vote counts, but I do vote. But when I looked at the average turnout, 17%, that's sad. You got only 17% of your county or city turning out to vote. That's not bad.
yeah.
So,
Mhm.
So we got 20 minutes. We can continue this conversation for 20 more minutes, and then I want to shut down so that I can get this recording published and on the
Okay, well, why don't you get
feed
it?
so people
I
can
would
look
like to
at
get it
it. But
published.
what
I want to review it again with the propositions
Yes.
in front of me. So I'm excited for you to go ahead and get that published soon because election day is right around the corner. Okay, Amber and Lyra, again,
Yes, it
thank you
is.
so much for your work. I am proud to know both of you. And even if we don't agree on everything, we do agree on some things. And we agree enough that it's important, but we all agree that we need to all go and vote. Okay, and thank you for doing this. And
Yes.
I'll take a look at it again slowly with the propositions in front of me. Thank you so much for doing this research and for the advocacy that you do.
It was good seeing you. Please keep me posted, Michelle, on that other thing we discussed previously.
Oh yeah, okay.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll call you, Amber. Bye
All
bye.
right. Well, thanks, Michelle, for
Okay, I'll
coming.
take a look at this later and then post the comments later. Okay.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
You're awesome. Thank you
Bye-bye.
for joining. Bye.
Okay.
Hi, Michelle.
So, what I'm sharing here, this is in regards to some of the people that we're talking with that are involved in this independent national convention model. This is, again, going back to grassroots. Right now, we really in this country don't have a choice when elections happen between candidates. We're given two options, either Democrat or Republican. And maybe we'll see an alternative on the ballot, but for the majority, it's not possible. In fact, when Family Rights Party last year was getting up and running, I was looking into how we could get the Family Rights Party on the ballot, and it's a serious process, and you have to have chapters in each state, and you have to have a continuous incorporation, and it just is, you have to be recognized by the governor of the state, and so
Sounds
forth.
messy.
So, you know, there's really not a whole lot out there right now that's a strong unified force of a third option. I mean, we have multiple options out there, don't get me wrong, but we don't have a strong unified option where people of those different parties, I know for a fact that like the Green Party and the Independent Party and the Libertarian Party all share similar ideas, but they're still separated. And some of what we're talking about with the Unity platform is identifying the ways in which we're similar, in which we're all going in the same direction or similar direction, because it is what we have in similarity that will be our strength in uniting and being able to provide a third option that is a viable option. Not just, I mean, what is considered right now is the disruptor option. The independent vote is that disruptor option. And sometimes it has a positive effect, but oftentimes it has a negative effect because it takes away from legislation that may be protective or, you know, a specific official that actually is doing their job. And there are those officials and those politicians that care, but not many. But let's open it up.
I have a question. So did they correct that? Because on the ballot, what was it? Whenever we had our primary, they had mine restrictive. Like when you're a independent, they don't allow you to vote on everything. And I'm wondering,
No,
I
they don't.
read somewhere that they're going to allow the independents to be able to vote now on the measures where before you had to be Republican or Democrat to be able to vote like down ballot. So I hope they fix that. I'm not sure if they have. I know I read somewhere that they were gonna do that, but my ballot was weird. It didn't have the same as Republican or Democrat.
Right.
It had less options, and I don't think that's fair. I'm allowed to vote on everything general. My ballot
Right.
is just, the same as yours, but on the special elections or the primaries, you call them, mine's limited. It's a limited ballot. I don't know why.
Well, and I think that's across the country like that, and they initiated legislation because when you register to vote with a specific party, you're given information from that perspective.
No, because I read both. Like my grandpa and yeah, we have family. They're both red, blue, and you get the option though to vote for either Democrat or Republican on that. But if you're a registered independent, they wouldn't. Mine was just look different. I couldn't vote on certain things that they could, and I don't know why. And I read that they
Yeah.
were going to stop doing that. They were going to allow independents to vote the same as they do with I was going to call it liberals, Democrats and Republicans. So it's just there was a strange restriction, and I hope they clear that up.
Me too, for sure.
I think we couldn't vote. I don't remember. I'll have to see. That's the thing, and now I can't remember. Now I sound like I'm talking strange here, but there was a restriction. Like it wasn't the same as theirs. Like I couldn't vote the way they could. Do you know what I'm talking about, Jim? Or no? He was in elections like forever. He's very well versed in political on both sides. So do you know what I'm talking about though, Jim? Where my ballot was different. Like independence ballots are different than everyone else's during primaries versus general. Oh, is it not working? Okay. Well, moving on. Thank you though, Lyra, so much for letting me have this kind of time to talk to everybody.
Well, you've done such a wonderful job, Amber, and I just want to give you props and recognition for this challenge that you took on. It was a mission. We publish public missions, and anyone else who wants to participate in this type of mission, we invite you to check it out. Starting at the beginning, we ask you to check out our invitation video. This is like an empowerment invitation video. And then we'd like to know a little bit about you, and you can create your profile by filling out the form here, which Amber did. And then she became an agent. So she's a part of the help desk community that we have provided through our beta test site, which is Coalition 4, that's the number 4, protection.org. This presenting through Great Works Alliance, inspiring and empowering the hero within. Amber, you are a hero to many. Thank you so much for all that you have done in sharing your insight and discovery with the public. And we will be publishing this for California by the end of today. So it will be on the site and available for you to share with those that you care about and want to offer more information to regarding these propositions in California. If you have another state
Yeah, and
that
if
you're in,
anybody,
keep on looking, investigating, do that research. Don't just follow the leader, quote unquote. We all
exactly.
are individuals and have the right to know what we're voting for.
Right.
That's right.
And it's so misleading. Like, if I can implore anything to anyone, and whoever watches this video or only wants to catch the highlights, the only thing I really, the message I want to get out there is just look at the money, follow the money, see how much money these things are going to cost, because there is a trickle effect of very big billions and billions and billions of dollar projects. So thank you, Lyra. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Nate. And Michelle. Bye-bye.